Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Roger Narlock, Director of the Benedict Institute, and I welcome you to our talk today. I will introduce today's speaker in just a minute, but first I invite the Associate Director of the Benedict Institute, Jesse Bazan, to lead us in a prayer.
Let us pray. Creative God, source of all goodness and inspiration, we give you thanks for the many central Minnesota artists who reflect divine beauty in their artwork, particularly Mary Bruno and all the monastic artists at St. Benedict's Monastery and St. John's Abbey. Kindle within each of us the creative sparks needed to make this world a holier, happier place. We offer this prayer through Christ our brother. Amen.
Thank you, Jesse. I would like to introduce Mary Bruno, today's speaker. Mary grew up right here in St. Joe, attended St. Joe Lab School as a grade schooler, and even learned to play the guitar under the guidance of Sister Ruth Ann. So her roots are deep to this community. She got a bachelor's of fine arts degree from St. Cloud State. After a few years of living in Madison, Wisconsin, she returned to St. Joe and has been running Bruno Press, a letterpress studio, since 2008. We are delighted to have Mary with us today to talk about her recent epic project of creating a scroll of the Rule of St. Benedict. Mary.
All right. Okay, so if you know me or you don't, or you've heard rumors, I am a printer, and sometimes my reputation precedes me, and I know that I've been described as a sweary printer or all these different things, and while that may be the case, I'm gonna keep it clean for you folks. I was at a conference, a print conference in northern Wisconsin this weekend, and I got this random wild compliment from this woman. She came up. I had presented the scroll project last year at this conference, and this woman came up to me, really demure, kind of quiet woman, and she was like, "Mary, I just want you to know that whenever I swear, I think of you." I was like, that's really, really touching, and I appreciate it. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of backstory about who I am and how I got into letterpress and all the things. So in order to do that, I got to start at the beginning. So the Brunos, we moved to St. Joseph from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, back in the mid-'70s. My dad had gotten his master's at the Philadelphia College of Art, and he accepted a teaching position here at St. Ben's. So that's pretty rad, like how connected I am to this campus and this town. My dad was a brilliant freelance graphic designer, a silkscreen poster artist, and a teacher who fell in love with letterpress in the mid-'80s. He was doing all kinds of his own poster work for the theater department. He was into linoleum carving. He designed a lot of logos and things for businesses in the area that are still logos today, which is rad. So he ended up acquiring a bunch of letterpress equipment in the mid-'80s. Basically, he was hanging out with these old printer guys because he loved the type, he loved the machines, and whatever, the next technology of printing that was coming onto the scene, all these printers were convinced this is now obsolete, this is garbage. So they were gonna dump it and recycle it, and my dad, was like, can I have it? So over the course of a summer, he built a studio onto the garage of the house I grew up in and had an instant print shop. A bunch of big presses, tons of type, composing tables, all the things you need. And it was amazing. So I grew up spending a lot of time in there with him, not really thinking about it in the long term, but just hanging out with my dad. We were really tight. So by the time I was ready to go to college, my dad was teaching at St. Cloud State in the art department. So I had got my BFA in printmaking there, and I was convinced that I was way more big time than St. Joe, St. Cloud, so I needed to find a big city. And I was like a 5-year art major, like I was taking all the classes, I wanted to learn all the things, but I had no plan. And I thought that was kind of cool. But so I moved away to Madison because I had studied abroad and I made friends that lived in Madison, and I was like, yep, that's where I'm gonna go. I worked 100 million different jobs. I started an illustrious bartending career, but I would come home to St. Joe pretty much monthly to print with my dad. You know, I would get little shows here and there. Again, I just still wasn't thinking about letterpress in any big picture. But things changed for me in 2003 when my dad passed away real suddenly. That really changed any trajectory I had or didn't have. And kind of, I felt like for the first time in my life, I wasn't yet 30, I felt a calling, you know, to get back to the print shop, mostly to come back to the machines and the type and the connection that I had with my dad. So that was like a no-brainer. So, well, actually, I did sidestep it. I came back to Minneapolis first because I was, again, connected to the, I just thought there was nothing for me in St. Joe, so I was in Minneapolis for a year. But it didn't work, so I knew I had to come all the way home. I did move back, and as like a 5-year art major / bartender, trying to start a business was no picnic. You know, I had no idea what I was doing. But one of the first things, one of the most meaningful steps in the process of like trying to start a business was, you know, to create some kind of brand and logo. So I started with my dad's logo, Don Bruno Designs. He had this rooster, which I never really got to ask him about point blank, but I just sort of built my logo around it, right? So I'm the kid of the rooster. So that's the story of my logo, which is rad. And yeah, I for the next 15 years, I figured out how, I mean, I wouldn't say figured out, that's pretty loose, but I started to actually make a business happen. I developed a line of salty greeting cards, which is the other thing I'm known for. And I think that's the like East Coast blood in me, you know, in Minnesota, saying things that people are too shy to say, but they're popular, so that's interesting. And, you know, I got really known for my super colorful, multi-layer reduction prints, my posters that, you know, don't mince words about standing for things that I believe in and that kind of stuff. So, you know, it certainly wasn't easy, and I learned everything the hard way, but I do think part of my secret to my success was just doing it every day until, you know, stuff started to stick, you know. I taught workshops from Sweden to Buenos Aires. I remained committed to creating art and posters the analog way, like my dad. And I built an incredible network. I've been teaching, speaking, creating and running a business and promoting tourism in my community. I've become a leader in the printing world and in my local business community in St. Joe. And I've discovered that a big part of my mission is about sharing and preserving the craft of letterpress, as well as connecting to people over common beliefs, even when we seem like so inherently different. So even though I'm not a St. Ben's alum, I feel like I'm getting close to being an honorary. I think someone said that, which I'm, woohoo! I think we should have a party. It's been a long, that's also taken some time, but you know, I've been taking interns from CSBSJU since 2012. I've been mentoring entrepreneur students, advising in design classes and letterpress classes, and trying to demonstrate what it's like to live as a creative, you know, like for real. I've been working with faculty and staff from many different departments, and it's been another really cool way to connect to students. This was a really cool project. we did this this fall, and it's like You Belong and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, that's all the feelers. That was beautiful. But I'm just getting more and more involved, which makes me really happy. So I've become really good friends with Richard Bresnahan over the years, partly because, well, he was, tight with my dad too, but he would bring his art and architecture class to my shop every year, and he started collecting my prints. In the fall of 2019, Richard had called me and asked me to be a part of something really big that he was working on. And, when Richard calls, you don't, I'm like, sure, dude, whatever, yeah. And I admire him. I admire how he works and how he builds community. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. Obviously, realizing I had no idea what I had just agreed to, I went out to the pottery studio and I sat with him, and he talked about what he was trying to create. With my part being to letterpress print the Rule of St. Benedict in the form of a scroll to be ensconced inside a new sculpture that he was building, or that he was going to construct in the new John Hassler Sculpture Garden outside the Elkwin. He said things to me that were really kind of amazing, like it was important that it be created from a women's perspective about the women of the St. Ben's Monastery. I'm like, yeah, I can get behind that. Historically, women have been underrepresented in religious texts, both in creation and content. So that was really meaningful, especially since I've admired the Sisters of St. Ben's for years. Like I said, they were my grade school teachers. Sister Ruth Ann taught me guitar. I mean, it was funny, like being a kid with these nuns. I think in like popular culture, nuns are portrayed as mean. These sisters were so rad, and we used to fight amongst ourselves in class of which one would get to ask them to come to dinner at our houses. Like we loved our sisters, and I still see a lot of them around. So amazing. But yeah, so I always, admired their work ethic, their community activism, and their endless kindness. So I knew it was going to be a ton of work. I knew it was going to take longer than anything I had ever committed to before. But it felt right. It felt great. So let's see. I got my copy of the rule, and I think I was struggling a little bit to connect with this text. I tried reading it. I really, really swear I did. But I was just not feeling it, okay? So I made arrangements to meet up with Sister Catherine and Sister Michaela to sit and chat, and that changed everything. Like talking to them about the rule was like asking me about letterpress or Marvel movies. They were like, okay, chapter 26. So this was really perfect. So it was easy for my intern, Madeline, and I. We just had highlighters and we had sticky notes, and we were just writing feverishly to keep up with them. We basically wanted the cliff notes and the highlights, the things that really stood out to them. So for the first time, I started to get jazzed. I could see things coming together in my head, and it was critical, in helping me determine what text was going to be pulled out, what was going to be bigger, thinking about where and what images I could place in the text. I started hearing things that resonated with me and how I live, taking seriously the arts and the craftsmanship and the stability and importance of a strong community and building and working together, because that's certainly how I live my life. So again, it was just starting to feel more like serendipitous, We spent a lot of time in the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library, which was like the most perfect, reference for us. We looked at how do you make a scroll? I mean, does it go this way? Does it go this way? The logistics were kind of insane, but we had so much help. And people were excited to give us time and support and references on what we could do. So I think another thing that I learned in doing this project was that I knew enough to surround myself with people that knew things about stuff I knew nothing about, right? Like, I know what my wheelhouse is, and I was proud of myself for being like, I don't know how to design religious text. Who is that person? And I found that person, Judy Gillitz, in Minneapolis, who's been designing religious text for 30 years, and she was incredible. What kind of paper do you use? What makes the most sense? Let's find an extreme paper nerd, Kent Aldrich, and he was like, yeah, here's what you need to do. I just was very proud of myself for being like, don't try to be a hero, ask for help. And I was constantly humbled by how much my community stepped up to help me. So on a side note, this is like now full-on pandemic, all right? So that was just another weird thing we had to navigate. But I had 4 interns at the time that had been working with me for about a year, and they were really committed to be a part of this project. So we kind of agreed that we're gonna stay away from people, and our bubble is gonna be the print shop. So I had 2 guys from St. Cloud State that were kind of taking care of the printing, and then I had 2 one from the tech college and Madeline from here that helped with a ton of stuff. So I was also kind of impressed that I was like kind of art director and producer, and I was putting people in places, because like there was a timeline that this had to happen. I couldn't just be doing this when I felt like it. Like, we had to full-time get after this. So it was time to start printing. And so now that, once I knew that these guys had a handle on the printing of the text, which all happened in the shop on my Vandercook press, I was sort of free to start designing the images. So it was interesting. I had no idea what it was going to be like to work with Richard. I sort of thought he was going to micromanage me, but he didn't at all. In fact, he was kind of the opposite. He was like, you do you. And I was like, wait, hold on. I don't know what that means, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Give me direction. Which he didn't really at all. There was a couple of things, so even more impressive, right? But he was like, he wanted the Joanna Kiln to be in there. He wanted the Sacred Heart Chapel to be in there. So I knew a couple things of what I wanted to do, but I also wanted to represent artists in the region that inspired me, like Joe O'Connell, and my dad. Had to slip that in there. This is, if you go look at it, you'll see that I put in there a logo that my dad designed of the BAC, which is super meaningful and awesome. I also wanted to capture the sisters doing what they do, you know what I mean? So I got to work with the archives and get really cool pictures of these folks doing stuff and places and blah, blah, blah. So this was all my inspiration, and once you go see it, you'll see that it's pretty spot on. So, I drew a lot of the images on my iPad and then had to transfer the images to linoleum and carve and carve and carve and carve and carve and carve. And it was kind of amazing. I honed my skill over that year so much. The amount of detail on these faces, like the nun that was making the candles, hands are really hard, even just to draw, but to carve was totally insane. And I was posting a lot of process videos on Instagram while I was doing this, and one of the biggest compliments I got was people would recognize the nun from my carving as I was doing it, and I'm like, okay, I got it. So yeah, this is all the blocks that I carved, so you can see there's little, there's huge, there's blah, blah, blah. And I have my favorites. There was another really neat story. So Judy designed the text, and then I had to come in after to design the images by the space she left me, right? Which is a little bit backwards, but actually it was good for me because I didn't want it just to be a blank canvas. So I knew I wanted to put the Sacred Heart Chapel in there, but the way it was oriented on the page, the chapel was on the wrong side. So I went behind I went out back and took a picture of it from the back, you know what I mean? And that's where I carved it from. And later, when it was on display with the sisters, they were like, that's our favorite view. And I was like, oh man, yeah, amazing. Okay, so meanwhile, Richard and his team were working on the sculpture and the containers that the scrolls would live in. Here's a picture of me and Ben bringing the draft out to Richard's, kind of be like, is this okay? Because again, he's like, whatever, but he was like, yeah, this is great, Mary. You've got a handle on it. You're doing great. So here's, as I'm starting to hand color, gold leaf, amazing. This is Madeline and Lucian putting all the pages together because they were printed one page at a time. This guy down here is Jeff Thompson. He's the one that had to also figure out from no reference how to create like a scroll holder, that you could roll and unroll. So there was some advantages to working during the pandemic because we didn't have any, very many distractions, but mostly it was hard because I couldn't show anyone, it was like if a tree falls in the forest kind of thing. Like I had nobody to show this to. But here's a real quick video that we took and we created the day that we put the scroll in the sculpture. No, it's not yet. Holding.
Well, so I'm telling you, man, I have just pulled off something I didn't think. Well, I thought it was possible, but what I have actually pulled off, it actually chokes me up. It's amazing. It's the hugest, most epic art project I've ever completed, and it fully exceeded all of my expectations, and it's kind of emotional. There's so much tied to it. Basically, about a year ago, I got a call from my buddy Richard Bresnahan, who was like, Mary, I want to collaborate with you on a project, and I really didn't even hesitate, even though that guy doesn't really do anything small. I knew it was going to be a big deal, and then embarked like a 9-month project that, me and my little pack of interns really dove hard into, and I've had so much help. I had so many resources of people that were stoked to help me, and basically what we did was letterpress printed the Benedictine rule, which is a lot of text. It ended up being 30 pages letterpress printed and assembled together to form this beautiful scroll that was made out of cherry wood that another local guy, Jeff Thompson, made. We worked really hard on kind of making these images be about the community, about the monastery, about artists, about central Minnesota, and it is something to behold. I'm bummed that I can't get this in front of as many eyeballs as I wanted, due to the current state of the world, but everybody that sees it is absolutely moved, and I'm just so honored that Richard trusted me to be this, to be a partner in this project. I think it was really amazing today to go see the first scroll be packaged into this sculpture that's going to immortalize it for the next 100 million years. It's really big. It feels like a huge jumping off point for the next stage of my career, and I'm just beyond floored and touched and stoked. And processing emotions is not one of my strong suits, but it's amazing, and I am thankful and lucky and so damn stoked. So when you can see it, it's gonna be something, my friends. This is it. So, woohoo! Right? All right.
Yeah, okay, so a year later, finally, we got to have an exhibition and a blessing, and the whole kind of thing got to come out, which was incredible. It was super validating, but when it was over, I was kind of like, now what? I don't want to just have it be in my shop and spill coffee on it, like I wanted to do more with it. And once it was finally brought over to the Sacred Heart Chapel and on display there for the sisters to see, that was kind of when it hit me, like how much they appreciated the work and how much it meant to them, obviously, you know. So I had started doing these print parties at my shop, and this was sometime in 2021, but I had a group from the monastery come out, and it was kind of perfect. We had a blast, and they were so into printing and letterpress and setting type. It was incredible. But I was like, okay, I have this group of women here, like, this is my target demographic. I need to talk to them about this. So I'm like, what do you guys think I should do with the scroll? You know, do you think more people want to see this? Do you think, would you be able to connect me to folks? I don't have a lot of Benedictines in my Rolodex. And they're like, yeah. So actually, Sister Karen, as you can see, this was before she was prioress, she connected me with Sister Lynn McKenzie down in Alabama, and they were really excited. So I got some money together. I raised some money, and I had the opportunity to commission the Abbey Woodworking guys to create a traveling display, because I'm like, I want to take this on the road, you know. So they built this thing that fits in the back of my Subaru. I mean, barely. Like, you can't put a sandwich in the car once it's in there. But it is beautiful. It is stunning. So that was kind of incredible. So the Rock and Scroll tour began. And I drove down to Alabama for this gathering of Benedictine sisters from around the world. And it was incredible. They were, I stayed there for like 5 days. I made connections. I did the whole, presentation, and they had interpreters, and like, I made these connections, sisters from the Philippines and Italy and Germany, and they drink whiskey too. And so, like, even more so, they're like, you got to bring it to Italy, and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. So that hasn't happened yet, but so then, I took it to, I found that I brought it to this same conference I was just in northern Wisconsin, and I found that it's not just Benedictines that are kind of mesmerized by this work. Printers and designers were like, you printed a what on a what, And so it was cool for me, a dirty, sweary printer, to tell the story of this unlikely partnership and all the things that I learned along the way, that like this artwork and monastic values continue to intersect, and it helps shape a more thoughtful and connected world, and that's something I feel really, really strongly about. It was this last summer, it was in Cheyenne at the public library all summer, which was incredible. We got the University of Wyoming involved and did a bunch of programming, and now it's back at St. Ben's. And, I'm just trying to share it with as many folks as I can, because I'm excited what I've learned, because bringing people together through shared stories and universal themes is amazing, and I feel like we need it now more than ever. I'm proud to have created a 40-foot-long letterpress scroll that's both visually stunning and intellectually enriching. I feel like this display is meant for a communal space, and it creates togetherness and sparks meaningful conversations, especially about the relevance of the rule of St. Benedict today and the craftsmanship involved in creating it. So that is my talk. I'm right at 25 minutes. I nailed it. So basically, I'm just trying to get this in front of people and tell people about it, demonstrate how artwork can bring people together. And we're going to walk over there if people want to go see it right now. And maybe you guys have some questions. What do you got?
So I have a quirky question. One of the sisters singing, was it Sister Christine Vanderbilt?
I don't think I got that confirmation. If you know, you know. I don't know.
Well, it looked like you nailed it, so I was wondering if that...
Yeah, totally. I had those pictures. I don't think I got the names from that. I couldn't corroborate, so maybe you should fact check. What else? What do you got?
You've maybe been asked this before. before, but I would love it if the pages could be put into a book and published in a high-quality edition. I'm a monk at St. John's, and I do like to read a little bit of the rule each morning, and I would love it to have a rule, you know, from St. Ben's. Has there ever been any thought about that?
So that would be amazing. Okay, so there's a couple things. I think that there's like copyright stuff with the liturgical press that I don't know anything about. So somebody has to talk to somebody, and somebody has to say, yeah, go for it. Otherwise, you know what I'm saying? Because I have met a bunch of people that feel that same way, and I think that would be way more approachable, right? Who's gonna, not a lot of people are like, I'd like to buy that scroll and put it in my living room, you know? So yes, I think, you know, maybe some of you folks can advise. Who do I talk to? How do I? Because yes, that would be dreamy. So let's talk. What else? Anybody else? Yes.
Okay, maybe I just missed this, but is it a copy that's in the sculpture?
Yeah, so I made 6. I made 6. One is in the sculpture. You know, the archives have one, the donor has one, Richard has one, I have one. Yeah, good question.
Mary, does that mean you hand painted each one or
Yes.
you colored each one?
Yeah. They're all a little different. Yeah. Cool. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you guys. No, one more.
Like, are you, when you are commissioned, are you paid for this I mean, upfront? Is it, how does, I mean, I don't really know how that all.
And again, I certainly didn't either, right? Because that's not how I typically work. It's like usually 500 of these and I need them by Friday, you know? So I think Richard and I both were like, but it was wonderful because I was able to sort of work backwards and figure out I was just getting paid throughout the pandemic to work on something that I was super excited about. And looking back, I think I did well, you know? I mean, always a learning curve, but you know, thanks to that donor who was like, here's a huge pile of money because it was awesome. But yeah, that obviously doesn't happen very often. And I don't think there's like an outline of how to do it. You just kind of have to figure out time but yeah, it was a good gig for sure.
Well, you could also surely do like greeting cards with some of the images.
Which I've done.
Okay, the Benedict, like.
Yep, with some of the images, yeah. Yeah, because I own the images, right? But it's the text that's a little fuzzy, and so I just need to figure that out. Yeah.
I'm curious to hear you articulate your takeaways of what the relevance of girls in Benedict is today. Because I think that's something these communities need to do a really good job of communicating. And as someone who's sort of on that community, I'm just curious to hear you articulate that.
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is like I keep talking about in this is this unlikely partnership, right? Like maybe in some worlds I have no business hanging out with a bunch of nuns, but maybe it's perfect. You know what I'm saying? I think we actually have way more in common than we don't. You know, yeah, I swear, blah, 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 like I'm a good person. So I think that all the time that I got to spend with these sisters was just like, I'm basically a Benedictine. You know, again, I'm not trying to offend anyone, I apologize. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that doing this just kept reiterating to me that like getting different people around the same table to just talk about these things, whiskey or not, was just so incredibly fantastic. And I will never forget that. And a lot of those sisters that I spent time with down in Alabama, like we still write letters. And, you know, I really do hope that I will continue to travel and do these things because to me, I don't know that I could just start spouting Benedictine quotes from the scroll, but I can tell you that like the actual living things, you know, like I said about craftsmanship and you know, if you are a creative person to do it and do it so well that, you know, without trying to be fancy about it. And then like the community thing is just so deeply ingrained in me. And maybe it is through osmosis being around nuns most of my life. Who knows? I don't think that matters. It just is how I conduct myself, you know? And I think that that's just a really cool thing to share, you know? Did I answer your question?
I think so.
Right on. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, once we wrap up here, you all are welcome to head over to the BAC with Mary if you have time to view the scroll. It's the building just south of here. If anyone's interested, maybe meet in this corner, walk over. Mary is also going to be coming to our building community this coming Friday, which will be at the BAC in the Escher Auditorium lobby, so right where the Rule of Benedict is. So that'll be another good chance to ask any questions and kind of be in conversation with this beautiful, beautiful piece of art. Two other quick announcements before we draw to a close here. There's still a couple of spots left if folks are interested in participating in our Benedictine 201 Advent reflection groups. We've got a groups meeting both at St. John's and St. Ben's, a good chance to do some Lectio Divina on classic Advent text together, and you'll get a copy of the little Advent book that I wrote. So if you're interested in that, you can see me or Catherine afterwards. And then next week, applications are going to go live for next year's Benedictine Living and Learning Community cohort for students. So if you happen to know any current first-year Johnnies or Bennies who might really enjoy the chance to learn more about Benedictine spirituality and live together in intentional community, have them keep an eye on their emails or reach out to me. And with that, let's give Mary one more big round of applause. Thank you.